Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so glad that you're here. So yes, this is my passion. This is showing students that we can solve this climate crisis, but we need their help because according to Paul Hawken, this is the last generation that's going to be able to solve this before things get a whole lot worse. So what I want you to understand is that the climate crisis affects all of our students' futures. But there are careers that will solve global warming, and they already exist. And upside, they align with Dallas College's guided pathways. So we can absolutely help our students get to where they need to be. So I'm going to share with you a video that our video crew up at LaCroix made for us.
Lori, I can't hear anything. Okay, everybody, give us just a minute as we work out the sound issue.
Okay. Well, I apologize. I could hear that perfectly. So, but it was really beautiful, wasn't it? It is a gorgeous video and it gets the message across. And I apologize because it worked yesterday. But you just gotta love technology. So we're just going to move on ahead. Um, y'all recognize this picture. This is the very first picture of the Earth fully illuminated that any of us ever saw. It was taken on the last of the Apollo missions and it changed the way that humanity thought about our common home. And it reminds us that we are all connected and that our actions have an impact on the planet. And this is called the Blue Marble photo that was taken on December 7th, 1972. But there are only three questions remaining about the climate crisis. Must we change? Can we change? And will we change? First of all, must we change? Yes, the scientific community all around the world has been telling us for a long time that yes, we must change. And now Mother Nature is telling us too. When you look up, the sky looks vastless, it looks limitless, but it's not. In reality, it's a thin shell of atmosphere surrounding the planet. But right now, we're putting 152 million tons of man-made global warming pollution into the atmosphere every single day. And that pollution, especially carbon dioxide, which is CO2, is building up and it's trapping the heat. So here's the basic science of global warming. This has been understood by scientists since the 1800s. It's not new. So the energy from the sun comes to the earth in the form of light. That energy is absorbed by the earth and it warms it. And some of that energy is re-radiated from the earth in the form of heat. Some of that outgoing heat is trapped by the atmosphere, which is a good thing because it keeps our planet at a stable temperature. But now we've been thickening the atmosphere by filling it with heat trapping pollution. And the more heat energy that is trapped, it's warming our planet at an unprecedented rate. There are lots of sources of human caused global warming pollution. agriculture practices, burning forests, transportation, and a lot of other things. But the main source and cause of the rising global temperatures we're seeing today is the burning of fossil fuels. Fossil fuels still provide more than 80% of the world's energy. Fossil fuel use and emissions have gone up dramatically since World War II. And in the last few years, there was a leveling off as the world adopted more and more clean energy solutions until another recent spike in global warming pollution. As a result of this pollution being trapped in the atmosphere, global temperatures have risen dramatically. So 19 of the 20 hottest years ever measured with instruments have occurred since 2001, and the hottest year of all was 2016. Heat itself is a problem in many parts of the world and many parts of this country. Heat affects not only people, but animals, crops, and our weather. On a global basis, more than 90% of all the extra heat energy trapped by our atmosphere is actually going into the oceans. This heat makes ocean-based storms like hurricanes, typhoons, and cyclones stronger and more destructive. Half of the increase in global ocean heat content has occurred in less than 20 years. Hurricane Florence produced record-breaking rainfall across portions of North and South Carolina when it made landfall on September 14, 2018, near Wrightsfield Beach, North Carolina. That is huge. That is just an enormous storm. But this extra heat also disrupts the water cycle, which is making the hurricanes worse and making our storms more severe. It's because the amount of the water vapor that evaporates off of the ocean increases as the oceans warm. So that water vapor is carried over the land and then falls in much larger precipitation events. Those rain bombs that we get from time to time here in the DFW area. And when the land can't absorb all that water that falls in these larger storms and downpours, that's when we see floods, mudslides, urban flooding. We have lots of those happening all over the DFW area. So extreme precipitation events have produced more rain and become more common since the 1950s in many regions around the world, including much of the US. And this is a supercell storm with a column of rain at its center that was taken in Montana in 2010. This leads to record flooding, which has been occurring all over the world. This photo is from the 2015 South Indian floods in the Indian state of Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh in 2015. So some people wonder how global warming can be blamed for causing more precipitation and flooding and at the same time, more drought. So the extra heat trapped by rising levels of greenhouse gases actually leads to both. And as the climate changes, precipitation patterns also change, leaving some places with less rainfall than before. So these changing precipitation patterns can lead to drought and water shortages. Southern Brazil, for example, suffered a devastating drought in 2015 and 2016. The higher temperatures also have a direct effect on the incidence and severity of wildfires, and we are seeing that right now in California. Here we see that the number of large fires corresponds closely to the years with higher average spring and summer temperatures. Today, the fire season in the western United States is more than 100 days longer than in the 1970s. And when Arnold Schwarzenegger was the governor of California, he was noted as saying that now the fire season in California is all year long. In 2016, this fire in the heart of the Canadian tar sands region destroyed large parts of the city of Fort McMurray, Alberta, and forced the evacuation of more than 100,000 people. And the number of climate-related extreme weather events has been going up worldwide. The last 2 years rank among the top 10 most expensive for overall disaster losses, with more than US $160 billion in losses in 2018 and $140 billion in 2019, and it's only going to increase. So this first photo is of a glacier in southern Greenland that was shot in the summer of 1935, and shows glacier ice covering the fjord walls. And this second photo that you see now is that same glacier, which is almost completely melted by 2013, not even 100 years later. So NASA has precisely measured the decline in the mass of ice in both Greenland and Antarctica. And this extra melting is raising the sea levels worldwide. This flooding occurred in Miami Beach, Florida, on a sunny day with no rain. High tides now regularly flood the streets of Miami Beach, as well as several other coastal cities around the world. And this situation will only get worse as sea levels continue to rise. Now in Florida, they are raising the streets. So they are spending millions and millions of dollars actually raising the streets. So think about that investment of tax dollars when you're really not solving the problem. You're just putting a Band-Aid on it until the next time you have to raise the roads. And actually, Miami is the #1 city at risk in terms of assets, infrastructure, land, buildings, along with Guangzhou, China, New York, Newark, and others. So looking at these cities at risk by population, we see that many huge cities in the developing countries are very much in danger, and they simply don't have the money in developing countries to recover from these incidents the way that we do. And if parts of these cities become uninhabitable, where will the people go? Even the Department of Defense has long warned that the refugee crises connected to climate crisis, as well as pandemics, water shortages, and food shortages, really is a barrier to national safety. Heat stress is now beginning to decrease crop yields from rice, corn, and soybeans. And exposure to higher levels of carbon dioxide also decreases the nutrient content of many of the staple crops that we eat and is in so much of our food: rice, wheat, and soy. Infectious diseases. We know all about that now. Heat stress, air pollution, waterborne diseases are all influenced by a changing climate, and it's not in our favor. So the warmer temperatures have an impact also on the spread of tropical diseases. Modern transportation and air travel play a part, but the potential range for many diseases expands as regions further and further poleward get warmer. And this means that there are more and more places where a disease like Zika can take root. And the main mosquito that spreads the Zika and dengue and the yellow fever is now covering a wider range of warmer, wetter world. In the warmer temperatures, this virus incubates faster and mosquitoes breed more and are able to transmit the disease for a longer period of time. And the health impacts of the climate crisis are often overlooked but will affect millions of people. So climate change, along with other factors such as ecosystem loss, such as the Amazon rainforest, is contributing to the worst extinction event since the extinction of the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. And this is actually a picture of an endangered golden poison frog. So all of these threats, including many that we haven't even covered here yet, and the facts that the World Economic Forum says that climate change is the #1 threat to the global economy, help to answer the question, must we change? So do we have to change? Yeah, we absolutely do. But now the question is, can we change? And this is where our students really can become part of the solution. But it's very exciting and it's very positive. All that doom and gloom, that doesn't have to get worse. We can solve these problems because we have the solutions available to us right now. Look, for example, at renewable energy. Wind energy was predicted to provide 30 gigawatts of electricity worldwide by 2010. But as of 2019, we have exceeded that prediction by 22 times. The growth in wind energy being built around the world is an exponential curve, and Texas is the leader in wind energy, just the United States. It could supply 40 times more electricity than the entire world currently uses. Solar energy is an even more dramatic story. So 18 years ago, the best projection was that we would install 1 gigawatt of solar energy capacity per year by 2010. Well, by 2010, we exceeded that goal by 17 times. And by 2019, we had exceeded that goal by 121 times. Even more dramatically than with wind, we see an exponential curve in the amount of solar energy installed around the world. Just as we've seen with other technologies such as computer chips and cell phones, solar costs have fallen dramatically. And in some regions, solar energy is less than half the cost of the electricity from burning coal. In many countries where there's no universal electricity grid, we're seeing consumers and businesses leapfrogging these old technology and going directly to solar panels in places that have long been denied access to electricity. It's like having your own mini grid right there on top of your house. The country of Chile is a true solar success story thanks to its policy decisions. Their solar market took off kind of slowly, but look at what's happening now. At the end of 2018, Chile had 2.3 gigawatts of installed solar and has an additional 16.67 gigawatts of solar projects approved or under construction. And there are many regions around the world in which this type of growth and development are possible. So every hour the Earth gets as much energy from the sun as we need to run the entire global economy for a year. If we can increase the fraction of this energy that we harvest and use, we can make a lot of progress towards solving the climate crisis and helping local economies at the same time. But here's what's holding us back. It's the battery storage. It's an essential part of the green energy revolution. Batteries will allow us to store excess solar and wind energy and use it during those times when the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing. It's also critical for electric vehicle market. So in 2016, the global cumulative storage capacity approached 3 gigawatts, which is almost 2 times the storage capacity in 2011. But as storage technologies get more efficient and cheaper, the market is growing quickly, and the global storage capacity market is expected to reach more than 900 gigawatts in 2040. Within just the next 8 years, highly efficient LED lights are predicted to virtually take over the market. They're energy efficient technologies that save money and also reduce the emissions by cutting down on the amount of electricity that we use. And all of these automobile manufacturers are now offering or preparing to offer electric vehicles. And this is just another small part of the sustainability revolution. So, can we change? Yes. Will we change? So here's some exciting news about this. In 2015, at the Paris climate negotiations, every single nation in the world agreed to phase down greenhouse gas pollution to net zero as early as 2050. The climate action isn't just about what countries do. We all have to take the lead on the climate. We're seeing corporations, states, provinces, cities, colleges, universities committing to reducing emissions. And we're seeing marches and demonstrations and demands all over the world and at the ballot box for the changes that are necessary to solve this crisis. So this presentation is from Al Gore's Climate Reality Group, and they are asking that we join those who are speaking out, voting, and making everyday choices to fight the climate crisis. So use your voice, your vote, and your choices in the marketplace and in your life to speak the truth to power like your world depends on it. Because your world depends on it, and we need your help. So here's the plug for the book and the DVD, The Inconvenient Sequel, which is exceptional, and also the Truth to Power book. So that's the baseline. That's where we need to start. That's where we need students to understand what's happening, how we can solve it, and the solutions that are there. But how do you get that to correlate with the careers, with the things that they're studying right now in the Dallas College? So according to Paul Hawken, who is a longtime sustainability expert and editor of Product Drawdown, the stakes have never been higher. We need a rigorous plan to draw down the carbon. So he pulled together a team of 200 scientists and researchers worldwide who modeled and chronicled 100 creative ideas, and they already exist. We don't need a moonshot. We already have the transformative solutions. We just need the people to scale up the projects around the globe. And when you couple these with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, this is where this college students can have the greatest impacts. Our students are being impacted by these, or they're being shown these sustainable development goals all the time. We work it into all of our materials, and we're trying to make it part of their curriculums. So when you couple the drawdown with the sustainable development goals, that's when our students are really going to start putting things together. But we need your help. And actually, so here's the book. So I highly recommend it. It is fabulous. So here we go. Here's some careers that align with Dallas College's guided pathways. So this pathway is the STEM pathway, but we have an agriculture track. So here, this is talking about restoring abandoned farmland. But it doesn't need to be, it can be restored, and to bring these lands back into productivity and sequester carbon in the process. So this is ranked number 23 by the Project Drawdown scientists. And they are estimating that if we do this, if we restore the farmland, it will reduce the CO2 in the atmosphere by 12.5 gigatons. So they estimated that it will cost about $98 billion to do this. But just look at the net savings, $3,200 billion in net savings. So when you hear people say, oh, but we can't afford to do these solutions, we can't afford not to. So if we spend a little now, we will reap huge benefits later. And then these are the 6 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, that align with this. And when we show these things to students, I really think that they will start to see the connections and understand that their lives and their careers can have an impact on the future. So this is another restorative, this is regenerative agriculture. This is where we put nutrients back into the soil. So favoring plant-based foods reduces the demand, which reduces land clearing, it reduces fertilizer use, and it reduces greenhouse gas emissions. So doing organic regenerative agriculture. This is number 21 on the list. And actually the number one thing that their scientists found that if we do will reduce the most CO2 in the atmosphere is refrigerant management. So that is actually number one. It's not exciting. It is not glamorous, but that is number one. If we can get that managed, we can put a huge dent into the carbon, extracting the carbon out of the atmosphere. Again, in agriculture, nutrient management. So this is number 54. They couldn't estimate a cost, but there is a negative net savings. But you think about the nutritional value that goes into eating these organic, pesticide-free, fertilizer-free. So the benefits are elsewhere, even if they're not in the actual cost savings. So you've got, it helps solve zero hunger. It helps solve good health and well-being, reducing inequalities, making the populations of cities and communities healthier. It just really will make a difference in so many different ways. Utility scale photovoltaics, or PV panels, ranked number 8. And here they're estimating the cost is a negative number of 200 billion. So it really can make a difference. And what we need to make sure that our students understand is that if you're not majoring in STEM, it's not that you can't make a difference. We need everybody to be in on this. We need people who can do the manufacturing jobs, and the technicians and the tradesmen and the business people and the marketing people and the writers to tell the stories and sell the visions of what we're doing. Here's another STEM one, but believe me, there's others. We'll get there. Electric cars is growing exponentially, and it's expected to reduce CO2 by 11.9 gigatons. And this brings in new SDGs, clean and affordable energy, decent work and economic growth. So the economy is not going to suffer when we do these things. These are all opportunities for more jobs, cleaner jobs, more productive jobs, and secure jobs that will help solve the climate crisis. High-speed rail. Man, that rail from Dallas to Houston, it just may happen someday. It keeps passing those hurdles, and it offers an alternative to trips that would otherwise be made by a car or airplane. Now, it requires special designated tracks, but it can dramatically curtail emissions. If you've ever been to Europe, you know that you can get anywhere you need to go on rail. It is the most fabulous network of mass transit that I have ever seen. There's even alternative cement. So cement production requires a significant energy and decarbonization of limestone. So they're taking fly ash, which is a waste product from burning coal, and it's replacing some of that material and it's put into the concrete. And so it's cutting down on waste because it's something that would typically be landfilled, but now it's being put into concrete and it's cutting down on emissions. Onshore wind turbines. You often hear these referred to as windmills. They're not windmills, they are wind turbines. And these generate electricity at a utility scale, just like what we have out in West Texas. And it's comparable to power plants. They replace fossil fuels with emissions-free electricity. And we always need technicians to repair those, to install them. So it's not, it is an absolute job creator. And this is number 6 on their list. Now this is cool, and I love seeing these whenever I'm traveling, green and cool roofs. So it's only number 73, but it not only pulls carbon out of the atmosphere, it actually cools the area that you're in. So it's something called biophilia, where it's nature where you wouldn't expect it, and it has a cooling feature and it absorbs the carbon. And they're just beautiful to see. And not only that, they are urban wildlife habitats, they are great pollinator gardens, and they're great stop-offs for migratory birds. Bioplastics. I absolutely love this technology, and it has so many places it can go. So whereas most plastics are made from fossil fuels, bioplastics utilize plants as an alternative. And so they have lower emissions and are sometimes biodegradable. So if you've ever seen a cup or a plastic bottle that has the letters PLA on it, that is polylactic acid, and that is a bioplastic. And it says it's compostable, but it needs to go into a commercial composting facility to be composted. It's not going to compost if you throw it out in your backyard compost bin. But bioplastics are really, really exciting technology. So, health sciences. Health is a huge part of solving the climate crisis because so many people are being affected by the climate crisis now with heat stroke and heart disease and uh, uh, with lung damage from air pollution. So just by looking at plant-rich diets, we can solve a lot of the climate crisis. So consumption of meat and dairy, as well as overall calories, often exceeds nutritional recommendations. So by favoring plant-based foods, it reduces the demand on meat and dairy and reduces land clearing, fertilizer use, burping cattle, and greenhouse gas emissions. And it also helps reduce hunger and increases good health and well-being and makes us more sustainable communities. And this is number 3 in the project drawdown list. Walkable cities. Now this one's a little tougher. Everybody talks, we're building more and more mixed use developments. We're trying to get people out of their cars, bringing people together as communities. But the drawback is that if we can't reduce the heat in the summertime, especially, people aren't going to want to walk outside. And so we have to cool the planet, and then more people will be walking. But we also have to make the cities walkable. So that means using planning and design and density in order to promote walking and to minimize driving, especially for commuting. And so emissions decrease as pedestrians take the place of cars. Bicycle infrastructure. Bicycles, again, offer an alternative to cars and fossil fuel transportation, especially in cities. So that infrastructure of installing bike lanes is really essential for supporting safe and abundant bicycle use. They are just finishing up actually a project in the DFW area called the Velo Web. It's VELOWEB, Velo Web, and it is a bike path that will go all around the entire Metroplex. You'll be able to get from Dallas to Fort Worth to Arlington and all the mid cities using this Velo Web, and it should be finished within the next year or two, so that's really exciting. So if you're majoring in business, you could, you not only need your accountants, your marketing people, your business people. You need to think about the buildings that businesses utilize. And one of the things that they can do is install LED lighting. I know that Dallas College is installing LED lighting throughout all of their buildings, and we just went through a retrofit at Mountain View last year into this year. But I work in the W building on the second floor, and it was always notoriously very dark. And they put in LED lights, and there's artwork on the walls that I never knew was there because it was always so dark. And just putting in those LED lights brightened up all of the hallways and made it not so dank. But it's really bright and refreshing, and we're saving money by doing it. Plus, we have to think about the efficient ocean shipping. So most of our materials come from overseas. Our supply chain management moves things all over the world all the time. So we really need to be thinking about efficient ocean shipping. It only ranks 45, but it can reduce CO2 by 4.4 gigatons. So that is a huge industry right there. Telepresence. Okay, so you would think that Paul Hawken was being doing a little foreshadowing with this one, because we are all now very, very familiar with telepresence. And I really don't see this going away. I think when we recover from this pandemic, I think that this is going to be a really, really ingrained part of our culture from here on out. So people can interact from all around the world. Our keynote speaker for our summit on November 6th is actually going to be doing his presentation from Toronto. So where we used to fly our speakers in, we don't have to do that anymore. So it's really very exciting. So what about manufacturing? High performance glass, glass that will not absorb the solar radiation and bring it into the building, but reflect it back out. That is huge, especially, so many of the buildings that are being done now are all glass. So if we can make that high performance glass, it really has a huge, huge impact. Trucking. You see trucks all over the place on the freeways. If we were to make these efficient, it would also have a huge impact. And Tesla is doing the fully electric trucks now. When you think of all the trucks that you see on the road, if every single one of those were electric, that would be a huge impact. And electric trains. This is the way to go. It's ranked 75. It's only going to reduce 0.1 gigatons, but this mass transit, where we're taking all of these cars off of the road by moving to electric trains from dirty diesel engines, that when you're repowered by renewables instead of fossil fuel generated electricities, it can provide nearly emissions-free transportation. Plus the building of automation systems. So yes, the robots are taking people's jobs, but we have to have the people to repair those and to build those. So it's creating other jobs. We lose this job, but it creates so many more. So we really need to start thinking about these in a positive manner, because they cut emissions and they increase energy efficiency and they minimize waste. So education, health and education, here we are. We're at a Dallas College event, so I know you're all in on health and education. And so, but when levels of education rise, in particular for girls and young women, and access to reproductive health care improves, and women's political, social, and economic empowerment expand, life gets better and you reduce CO2. And this is number 2 on Paul Hawkins' list, and it reduces CO2 an estimated 85.4 gigatons. Simply educating girls can reduce the gigatons by 59.6, reducing those emissions by 2050. Just simply educating girls. That is enormous. So we have our law and public service guided pathway. So those are people, we're going to need people who do these things, who are solving the climate crisis, working in government and in non-government organizations and in public safety, social services, paralegals. We train all of those. We have classes for all of those things in Dallas College. And all of the creative arts. We're not going to leave the liberal arts folks out of this. We need people to do electronic media, cultural media. We need students who have writing skills, who can do animations. Those are all classes that students can take here in Dallas College. So it's not all just, being actually the manufacturer of these specific things or being the farmer. We also need all the transportation and all the marketing, all of the forest rangers. We need salespeople. We need software and computer engineers, installers, cooks. We need vet techs. We need librarians. So what we need to tell our students who aren't, like, well, I don't want to be a farmer or I don't want to build robots, but they can work for companies that are committed to sustainability and solving the climate crisis. Most companies now, well, all companies who are all in are telling people on their websites, and it is in their marketing materials, what they're doing. And so we know that for millennials, that this is a huge selling point for careers. And we need to make sure that our students are aware of that, because they can make a huge, huge difference. So that's my presentation. Please follow us on our sustainability and resilience websites. Follow us on our Facebook page. Be sure to attend the Sustainability Summit on Friday, November the 6th. And I am happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Lori. That was wonderful. We have had a question about, can they get your slides, the ones from Climate Reality? And I said I didn't know. I would check with you.
Actually, let me check on that. I went through the training, the 6 weeks training over the summer, so I could have access to those. Let me ask. I don't want to say no and I don't want to say yes, so let me find out. If you will drop your name and your email in the chat box and give that to Georgianne, I will check on that. I'm happy to do that.
And we also had a question, can I put Climate Reality in there? And I'm going to search for that in just a second and load it in the chat. And also we've had a question, could you expound more on telepresence, more on the SDGs related to telepresence?
Wow. This has become such an enormous part of our lives, especially now with students distance learning, especially in Dallas College. We are only doing in-person classes for things that absolutely cannot be taught online, such as welding, nursing, automotive repair. But it gives people access to an education. So where the problem lies on this is those students who don't have internet access or they don't have computers. So you saw schools all over the country mobilizing to get hotspots to students, to get iPads and Chromebooks to students who didn't already have those materials when we were sent home in the middle of March. And all of a sudden, where we had students who were able to use our computers on campus, in the libraries, in public libraries. All of a sudden, those things were not accessible. And so we saw a huge digital divide. And I think that the pandemic has really opened a lot of people's eyes to the importance of everyone having access to the internet and to digital learning, to be able to Zoom and do Teams meetings and WebEx and GoToMeeting. All of those things are telepresence. And it increases your ability to do decent work. So now more people are working from home. And the discussion now is, will people ever, well, yeah, I mean, they will, but will they go back to their offices like they were? Offices are going to look different. And I'm wondering how it's going to affect real estate prices if all of a sudden businesses say, I don't need 40,000 square feet for all my employees because they're doing a fantastic job working from home. I don't need to rent out all this space. So, and it allows for innovation and new infrastructure, building out that internet capacity. It reduces inequalities. So now we can have conversations with people from all over the world. It gives us more sustainable cities and communities, and encourage responsible consumption and production. Because you think about all these things have been given out. Now we need to ramp up the recycling of these materials, because electronics have a lot of they have lead in them and toxic metals in there, but it also has metals that are worth a lot of money. So we need to make sure that we recycle all of these electronics that we are depending on. I mean, we thought we depended on them before. Now it's really, really important that everybody have access to work and go to school. And then it's also a climate action because people aren't traveling. So I've attended so many conferences this year that I never would have been able to do because I just didn't have it in my budget to travel. And so you think of all the gigatons of pollution that are not being emitted because people aren't flying as much. Yes, it is bad for the airlines, but there has to be trade-offs. We're just at that point right now where it's just not safe to fly, but there are benefits.
Lori, we had a question. Could you list the books again? I put Project Drawdown in chat, and I'm not remembering what other books you've mentioned.
You bet. So it was An Inconvenient Truth, which Truth to Power. So this is the sequel to Vice President Gore's Inconvenient Truth back in the early, was that 2003, 2004? I actually saw him give his Inconvenient Truths presentation in Grand Prairie at a Nokia Theater back in the early 2000s, and it was just, it was just fabulous. I loved every second of it. So they did a sequel a few years ago, and then they have a book that goes along with it. It's a handbook where you can learn about the science, and they help you find your voice. They also do this training anyone can do the training. It is free, and it is all, you always had to travel somewhere, and it was all over the country. But because of the pandemic, they did their very first virtual training in July, and they trained 10,000 of us over, it was like 7 weeks. It was phenomenal experience. So there were 10,000 of us. They did another 5 or 10,000 in August, and then they will be doing more of these. So be sure you go to Project Reality and check that out. I'm sorry, Climate Reality, and get on their mailing list, because those will fill up very quickly. I know that Georgianne tried to get in to one after I told her how fabulous it was, and it was just so popular because people are doing it from all over the world. So I highly recommend that you go through the training. You will get to hear from people that are so incredibly inspiring. I just came out of it a better person.
Thank you, Lori. We have a question. The presentation noted health sciences is number 3 in the ranking. What was number 1 and 2?
So number 1 is the refrigerant management. And number 2, I think, is the girls. The problem is that the book is not in order because they had to make the book before they, so let's see, all the solutions. Number 2 is, so number 1 is refrigerant management. Oh, let's see here. I'm looking on my other computer. Oh no, I can't find it. I think it's girls.
Okay.
But so, I'm sorry.
Everybody can
go to drawdown.org. Yeah. I apologize.
Okay, and then we have one more question on, I'm a political science major. Could you please expand more on the law and public services careers?
Oh, wow. Okay, so we need people to set policy. Without good policy, we will not be able to accomplish any of these things. So we need policies that encourage the expansion of these technologies. So we need policy that provides tax benefits to companies that are ramping up these climate solving careers. So, for instance, right now we subsidize the fossil fuel industry. The United States of America's policy is to subsidize a very profitable fossil fuel industry. But the policy toward renewable energy is, nope, sorry, if you can't make it on your own without our subsidies, you just must suck. So, and that's just not the way it is. If we have policies in place that that make sure that help these industries gain ground and scale up, the sky is the limit. If we had policies that made sure that everyone had access to affordable health care, affordable education, to healthy air and clean water, and not just the United States, but really all over the globe. If we had policies in place that provided people with affordable housing, with healthy food. We have food deserts in Dallas, where the closest place for people to get food is the grocery. Not the grocery. The gas station mini mart, where they don't even sell milk. Around Mountain View, we have two gas stations, one across the street, one down the street. And when I go to the USDA's website to find out where grocery stores are in our region, it lists both of those as grocery stores. So one's a mini mart and one's a Texaco with just like a soft drink dispenser, and they list that as a grocery store. So we need policy that will change the political atmosphere. We need the political will for these things to get better. Otherwise, it's just going to be an uphill battle. So I really appreciate the fact that you're majoring in that. You can really do good things with that kind of a degree.
Lori, we have one last question that I'll give you in just a second, but I want to remind everybody, please fill out the evaluation when it pops up on your screen when you leave the webinar. Sign up for our Perennials You Can Count On webinar next Tuesday. And also sign up for the Sustainability Summit on November 6th. And so, Lori, I'll give you the question, and also you can tell them anything that they need to know about the summit, since you are the person who is producing it this year. So here is the last question. The bio provided for Lori stated that she has a degree in urban planning. She's working on it. What caused her not to work in the profession of urban planning, and what does she believe is the effect or influence of urban planning for the near future on climate change?
Oh, all good questions. Okay, so I've been doing sustainability for 25 years. My background is in the garbage industry and city government. And so I got into sustainability there, and that's why I got my my master's at SMU. And the degree program there is in sustainability and development, which is sustainability and urban development, and learning about how urban development impacts the climate and how we can solve a lot of the climate problems using urban planning. That's what caused me to go to UTA and get my PhD in urban planning and public policy. So I want to eventually become a full-time faculty at a four-year university where I am teaching students in urban planning how they can do urban planning in more ecologically friendly ways to help solve the climate crisis. So that is my goal. That's where I'm moving toward. Climate has been a passion of mine for a very, very, very long time. And I want to impart that knowledge to more students through, urban tree planting, through protecting urban wildlife, installing more green roofs, installing more bioswales, more green infrastructure systems that will not only cool the cities, but will also mitigate the climate crisis. It will mitigate extreme heat. It will mitigate extreme storms, and it will also help with urban flooding. So, and stormwater management. So the sustainable solutions at a city scale, it can just have, there are huge implications if we do it right. If we get away from doing, just acres and acres of parking lots, and we put in mass transit to move people around instead of huge parking lots and huge urban heat islands in our cities. So there's just, I could talk about it all day. It's a very exciting field, and I'm very, very excited about it. So,
Lori, thank you so much. And thank you to Roger for telling us that number 2 in Project Drawdown is onshore wind. And we have a recommendation to look at TED Talks interview. There's a podcast, or the TED interview podcast with Al Gore speaking on updated climate issues.
Yeah.
And we have a question about what does refrigerant management include. And so again, we would recommend that you go to drawdown.org, and that will give you a lot of information about what the refrigerant management includes. So Lori, thank you, thank you, thank you. Excellent presentation. Would you like to give everyone your email address so that if they have any unanswered questions, they can reach out to you?
Absolutely. It is Delacruz. So it's LDELACRUZ at dcccd.edu.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. We're going to end